Hi, I'm Jill. I'm from Simple Surrogacy, and I'm here to answer all your questions about surrogacy. And I was a surrogate 4 times. I carried 3 sets of twins and 1 singleton, so hopefully I have the answers for you. Well, when I was growing up, my aunt tried having children for years. I remember watching her do all kinds of crazy infertility treatments that I'm sure don't even exist today. She would put these pills under her tongue all the time, like we'd be out shopping and she'd have to do that. And they ended up going through adoption. They waited 11 years for a baby. Twice they picked the baby up and had it taken away. So I remember how painful it all was for her and the entire family. So, whenever I got older and I started researching about surrogacy, I was like, if I could have done that for her all those years ago, I mean, I was only 10, 11 years old at the time, but if I could have done that for her back then, I so would have done it. And then when I was pregnant with my own daughter, I just loved being pregnant. So it brought me back to thinking about her and how, I would have done that for her. I could do that for somebody else.
That's a great answer. Thank you. And what made you decide to go with Simple Surrogacy?
Well, initially I was just on a general surrogacy board, surfing ads that were on there, and I answered one for a set of intended parents, not knowing that it was the parents were with Simple Surrogacy. So I emailed, and then Stephanie Scott, the program director, emailed me back, and she was like, this couple is actually represented by us. So I ended up talking to Stephanie for a while. I ended up not being a good match for that particular couple, but she had plenty of other profiles for me to look at. So my first match was a couple in Georgia. It was a second marriage for the intended mother, and she had an older son in his 20s, and she wanted to have a child with her new husband, who was younger, not much younger, a little younger, and he had no children. So I matched with them. We had some issues at first getting pregnant, poor embryo quality, so I ended up actually being a traditional surrogate for them. So I went through the actual IVF process, the entire process, from retrieving my eggs, fertilizing, and then transferring them back to me. So that journey was a little challenging for me. I'm sure they're wonderful parents, but I learned a lot from that journey. And so when I went into my second journey, I had all those things in mind that kind of went wrong during the first journey. So immediately when I matched with my second set of intended parents, those were some of the things that I brought up to them when we first spoke, that these things had happened and I would like to avoid those things happening. So throughout that journey, that couple was very conscious of the things that went wrong during my first journey. And so when the second journey was over, I remember thinking, after the first journey, I thought I might never do it again because of the way it ended. But after the second journey was over, I was like, that's exactly how I expected it to feel the first time when the baby was born. It's like a feeling that I can't even describe, handing that baby to its parents for the first time and seeing their faces and seeing the joy through their eyes, something that they've been waiting for their entire lives. So that's why I went on to do it 2 more times after that. The second set was a couple that was local, so they were able to come. I think that the intended mother missed 1 appointment through the entire pregnancy. She came to every single appointment. She and I got pretty close during the journey. I mean, did baby registry with her, was at her baby shower, actually was in labor at her baby shower because they waited until I was like almost 40 weeks to have the baby shower. So I was actually having contractions while we were at dinner and everything. So, but we took a birthing class together so that I could have the baby without an epidural. She came over and she folded my laundry for me and everything while I was in labor. We went to the hospital and, they gave us a bed in the room together. And so we were pretty close during the entire thing. Then towards the end when I was about to deliver, then she called her husband and he came in and everybody was there for the delivery. So that was a great experience. I still talk to them all the time. We do birthdays and things like that together. Maren will be 10 this year.
Wow.
So, but that was a great experience. And then as soon as I delivered that time, I immediately said, I'm going to do it again. And I don't even think, I was literally home from the hospital maybe 2 days, and Stephanie was like, I have somebody that's not quite ready, but I have a person that I think that you would be great for. So I reviewed the profile. It was a single intended father from Tel Aviv. We ended up talking and hitting it off. He's actually probably the parent that I am the closest to now. We communicate all the time. He sends me WhatsApp pictures all the time and emails, and I think that he's planning to come here this year, I think, to visit. He said that I had boy-girl twins, that they carry my picture around and ask about me all the time, and he tells them about me all the time. So, but yeah, it was an international journey, and that was the first one I had done. It was the only international one I did. But for people who are concerned about, caring for international couples because, they're far away, it's a different time zone, will they get here in time, they won't be able to attend very many appointments, it actually was probably the perfect arrangement for me, because we still communicated after every single appointment, and he did come over for the 20-week sonogram. But while he was here, we spent a lot of time together. He came over and I cooked dinner and we hung out, and he came the week before. He came, I think, at 36 weeks, and I was pregnant with twins. So he was here for about 2 weeks before I delivered. So he came to all the sonograms and appointments, and we just, we shared a birthday. We almost had the twins on our birthdays. I couldn't quite make it the 4 extra days, but we just ended up getting really close, and he was here for another month after, and we hung out, and I babysat for him a little bit so that he could go shopping with his mom. They did a conversion ceremony because they were Jewish and I'm not, so I was invited to that. Kristen was at that as well. So, and then, I still keep in contact with them, like I said. And then my last journey was another set of boy-girl twins for a single intended father who lives in Chicago. We don't communicate a lot anymore, but if I text him, he'll text me back or send pictures, or if I'm in the area, we'll have dinner. But it was a good journey. We mostly communicated via phone, and he came down for the 20-week ultrasound. So he was here about the same amount of time as my intended father from Israel was here. But we still, if I was in Chicago, we would definitely do dinner or something like that. And he sends pictures, and he always sends a Christmas card with pictures and stuff. So
that's great.
That one ended well too. I personally I've not had any not really any negative responses from family and friends. Most of the time, everybody's been really supportive, and the only person I can say that in my family that probably he was just not involved was my father. I don't think he really approved, but he just didn't say anything at all. We just didn't talk about it, and they're not local, so we still don't really talk about it, but the rest of my family was always supportive. I know that other surrogates, I mean, I hear all the time, like, how could you do that? How could you give a baby away after you carried it? Don't you bond with the baby? How, isn't that too hard? And honestly, you go into it with a very different mindset. You go into it knowing that it's not your baby, so you kind of have a separation, and it's not something that every woman can do. I mean, there's probably very few of us who can actually make that separation, make that distinction, and not get attached. But for those who can do it, it's a wonderful experience.
Right, and I think it probably helps the more you have the bond with the parents too,
right.
You can picture.
And
like
that's what I always tell new surrogates coming in. A lot of times at the end, if you feel sadness, it's not because you miss a baby or you want to take a baby home with you or you want the baby. It's usually the relationship with the parents, because towards the end you are in constant contact with one another. You're practically every day, because you're just waiting for the baby to come. It's like Christmas for a little kid. You're waiting, like every day is like, you can't wait till it gets here, and then it happens. And then the next day, when it's like the day after Christmas, and you're like, oh, it's over. And that's kind of what it feels like. And you miss the constant contact and the excitement and everything that you shared with the intended parents. But it's not, and for me it was never about missing the baby. I love seeing pictures, but I also, by the end of the pregnancy, you're ready to have a baby. Just like in your own pregnancy, you're ready to have a baby. And once you go home, I remember just being really happy to be not pregnant anymore and be with my own child and go back to my own family and doing the things that I missed when I was pregnant.
Did your daughter have any questions during the process? Was she old enough to know
The
what was going on?
first time she was only 2, and she actually, I talk about those twins, but she doesn't have any recollection of them at all. She knows Marin, the second little girl that's 10. She knows her, so she understood, and she understood then. Sometimes she would say things in public where I was like, that's probably, I would just smile and let it go. It'd be kind of fun sometimes. And then the last 2, she was definitely old enough to understand. She probably knows more about how babies are made than most kids. in a medical sense anyway.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with me. They've been really interesting, and I think our viewers will find them really valuable. So thanks so much for your time.